Hi, I'm Betty McLean, and welcome to Healthcare Hope, a podcast for nurses. With 2 decades of bedside experience and now as a certified burnout coach, I understand the challenges nurses face. I believe that all stress is manageable and burnout is not inevitable. Join me in building strength for yourself and hope for the future of our industry. Welcome back to Healthcare Hope, podcast where we talk about creating peace, balance, and healing in your professional and your personal life. I am your host, Betty McLean, and today we're diving into the topic that comes up a lot in nursing profession, which is dealing with toxic coworkers. How we define toxic versus abusive, we are going to touch on. Really, it's all about protecting ourselves and maintaining our integrity. By the end of this episode, you're going to have a clearer understanding of how to set boundaries with toxic individuals. And you're also going to understand why many people who are labeled toxic aren't actually as bad as you may think. Bear with me. And how your healthy behavior can be a game changer for people around you. So let's get started. First, let's get clear on the distinction between toxic and abusive behavior. In some situations, in a lot of situations, people are going to use those words interchangeably, and that's perfectly fine. For the purpose of this podcast, I'm going to make a differentiation between those two words. It's important to recognize abuse when it's there versus people who are negative and toxic. So, for the purpose of this podcast, toxic people are people who drain your energy, create unnecessary drama, and may make you feel really negative or exhausted after interacting with them. These people are often dealing with their own unresolved issues, and it spills over into their relationships and, unfortunately, their relationship with their coworkers. Abusive people, on the other hand, again, for the purpose of this podcast, they are intentionally hurting or controlling other people. Abuse crosses a clear ethical line and causes harm. Very often it's manipulative or violent. Abuse is never okay, and it is important to seek help and remove yourself from abusive situations. So, again, when I'm talking about toxic people today, I'm not referring to people who are abusive intentionally. If you're dealing with someone who is abusive, it's vital to prioritize your safety and seek professional support. So, let's talk about this word toxic that we throw around really easily, especially in coworker situations. It's easy to label someone as toxic when really we just mean they get under our skin or we feel really drained around them. They're the annoying person or the coworker who's always gossiping or always has negative complaining things to say. They're the negative Nancy or the negative Nelly, whatever you want to say, of the unit that you work on. And they're really uncomfortable to be around. But often toxic people aren't really as toxic as we think. Most of the time, people who seem toxic are really just dealing with their own struggles. Maybe they've got a lot of unresolved trauma. Maybe they're burnt out themselves, or they simply don't know how to handle stress. Their negativity does not mean that they're evil. It just means that they're hopeless. In fact, they probably have a very cynical worldview because they don't have the skills or tools to handle what life has thrown at them. Now, this does not mean that you have to put up with their behavior, but understanding that and just allowing your view of them to shift slightly can be really empowering for yourself. Instead of labeling them as toxic in the black and white sense, try seeing them in shades of gray. This mindset shift, say that 10 times fast, really helps because it takes away the emotional charge of labeling someone as toxic, entirely negative, and it gives you more control over your own emotional response. So, how do we deal with people who are bringing negativity into our lives? One of the most powerful tools you have is a healthy boundary. Boundaries aren't about cutting people out of your life completely, unless that's necessary for your well being, but really it's about protecting your emotional and your mental space. Here's the key: you can be around toxic people without compromising your integrity or becoming toxic yourself. Setting healthy boundaries does not mean you have to be rude or distant. It means you're clear about what you'll accept and what you won't. Let's pretend that you have a coworker who is constantly gossiping or constantly complaining. Your boundary could simply be, if they are gossiping, then I'm going to say, I'm happy to chat, but I don't feel comfortable talking about these people behind their back. It's a simple but effective way to communicate that you are not going to engage in their toxic, negative behavior. That behavior leaves you feeling negative and drained, and you're not going to engage. Boundaries also help you stay grounded in your values. When you know what matters to you, like being compassionate, professional, or feeling peaceful, you can be around difficult people without being dragged down. Your boundary helps you stay anchored in who you are and what is important to you. But as I described in the episode on boundaries, they need to be simple. They need to be made ahead of time, and they need to be for you, not to try to control the other person. Finally, I want to talk about how you can be the opposite of toxic. The opposite of toxic is not positive. I'm sure you've heard the term toxic positivity. That's not what I would encourage you to go for. In my world, the opposite of toxic is safe and healthy. When you practice self care, you set clear boundaries, and you stay true to your values, you become healthy. And you become an example of what's possible. You show other nurses, even the so called toxic people in your life, that it's possible to handle stress, pressure, and difficult people without falling apart or losing yourself. When you stay healthy and grounded, your behavior creates a ripple effect. People will notice that you don't get involved in gossip or the drama. They'll see how you handle tough situations with grace and with strength. And whether you see it or not, your healthy behavior may inspire others to make positive changes too. This is especially important in the nursing profession, where burnout and negativity literally spreads like wildfire. By staying focused on your own mental and emotional health, you can model the kind of resilience and balance that others really desperately need. So, to wrap up, remember, toxic people aren't always as toxic as we think. They may just be dealing with their own pain. With healthy boundaries, you can protect yourself while being compassionate and maintaining your integrity. And most important, when you focus on being the opposite of toxic, being healthy and safe and true to your values, you can inspire positive change in others and really elevate the entire nursing profession. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found this episode helpful, I really encourage you to share it with a fellow nurse who might need to hear it and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And as always, if you're ready to dive deeper into burnout recovery or setting healthy boundaries, you can reach out to me directly for a free consultation call. Simply email me, Betty@aimforgreatnesscoaching.com. Until next time, stay healthy, set those boundaries, and keep being the amazing nurse that you are. Thank you for listening today. If you're ready for support and looking for a community of like-minded healthcare professionals, join me in my free private Facebook group called Healthcare Hope with Coach Betty. If you found this episode helpful or encouraging, please share it with your friends and fellow nurses. Subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Together, we can create strength for our lives and hope in healthcare.